You're listening to the 95 podcast from the team at 95 Network, where we host conversations specifically designed to support leaders in small and mid-sized churches.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 95 podcast. This is Dale Sellers and Joseph Bennett, and we are so stoked about this podcast today. And I know I come on a lot and say I'm excited about a podcast, but I've been looking forward to this one for really 2 months, ever since I met our guest. Shelby Black is going to be with us today. I'll get her to tell you all about herself in a minute. Joseph, how are you feeling about this podcast?
Man, I'm so excited to talk about this. So it's going to be a great day, Dale.
Let me tell you how I met Shelby. So I saw an article that she wrote, which I want to talk about today. She's, by the way, everybody, she's the guru. She's the national or international guru on all things AI. So she knows everything about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was looking at, she wrote an article on LinkedIn, and I think it was like 10 guardrails for the church. I want to make sure I say that right. Is that how it was titled? Anyway, it was about 10 things churches need to be aware of in using AI.
Yeah.
And I noticed that in the comment space right below it, my daughter Tiffany, who works at the Unstuck group, had said something to you, and I could tell they've already connected. So I went up to Tiffany and I reached out to you, and you and I actually had a Zoom call before you and her did.
That's right. You beat her to the chase.
I did, and so I told her that you and I were recording today. And so, Shelby, thank you for joining the podcast. I know you're busy, and people, if you study anything AI in the church space, she's on every national everything. I mean, she's just popular.
No.
The AI lady is here.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, I thank you. That is a warm introduction. And I will say, if anyone claims they know everything about AI, they are lying, because it has probably changed since they started that sentence. You know,
Yes.
I mean, it's moving too much, but I do know ministry. And I do know a bit about AI. And so when it comes to building out guardrails and just like what should ministry leaders be thinking about or start to be thinking about, I mean, I'm here for it all day.
Before we dive into it, give us a little of your background. Tell us your story a little bit before we get into the meat of today, which who knows what the meat today is going to be.
Let's just see where it goes, right? So I live in Denver currently with my husband, 2 young kids. I work for, my husband and I started a AI chat platform to help ministry leaders access their data so they can just see their people clearly is our thing. Is, you know, instead of trying to filter out of a search, it's, hey, who needs a reach out right now, or who hasn't shown up in a while. So we started that after years of me working in ministry, and he also works in tech, works for probably a company a lot of our listeners know, because they're a tech company that serves churches as well. But I also work for Clever Marketing. We work with churches doing marketing and communications. And I sit as the director of growth there. So that's a unique position for me, because I get to meet all the ministry leaders that are coming in with problems that range from communications to marketing to everything in between. And AI is certainly a focal point when it comes to that conversation. And so I sit at this weird intersection of knowing tech and knowing ministry. And so when it comes to the app that my husband and I created, I mean, it just was born out of necessity and a call to say, you know what, let's use a tool, make it a tool that AI ministry leaders can just do better at their jobs and have more time to be the pastors and the leaders that they are.
That's called the Bellwether app.
Bellwether app.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
You spelled weather wrong.
Well, okay. So Bellwether is the name of a bell that was set on sheep. So it's kind of a nod to like leading a flock, right?
Gotcha.
I like it.
So that's where I go there. But yeah, the spelling is very
I'm like, she can't even spell weather right. So here's what I want to do before at the front of the podcast, I want to talk about the 10 guardrails article, and then we got lots of other questions. But I've got to tell you, to set this up today, what just happened 15 minutes ago. I got a text from a lady named Presley who works with a communications company, Pathos.
Okay.
and wanted to and was telling me about all these articles that are happening right now and how that I was an expert in this space of helping communicate with churches. And so Presley and I texted back and forth, carrying on a little conversation, and then booked an in-person meeting for tomorrow morning at 10:30. And I got to thinking, that went way too smooth. And so I texted back and I said, Presley, by the way, what's your last name? I think I know you. And Presley texted back and said, well, I'm not a person, I'm an AI bot.
Wow.
And then it goes, do you still want to have the meeting tomorrow? And I said, nope. That
Hmm.
literally just
Wow.
happened. And I mean, I had already booked,
Impressive.
I'd given Presley my email address and booked an appointment for tomorrow morning at 10:30.
Where were you guys going to meet? And what was it going to be, a
I
robot that showed up?
don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually curious. You should have kept that meeting.
Well,
What does
Shown up.
Yeah.
I can get it back, but we were going to do a Zoom meeting tomorrow.
What does
Oh,
Presley
wow.
look like? Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
AI can make Presley look like whatever,
I guess so.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
That's
so
right.
but that literally just happened a few minutes ago. And the reason that I did that, I had a friend reach out last night, Daryl Stetler, who's been on our podcast many times before, and he actually he was interviewed yesterday by the Wall Street Journal, and they're talking about working about churches and AI and that kind of thing. And he said that, they wanted to reach out to me as well. So I thought that's what it was. So
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah. Well,
but see, all right. So I'm 63. Joseph, you're
mhm,
30 what?
38.
And then Presley, you're
mhm.
under that. And so I don't react as quickly as y'all do. Like my daughters, Tiffany, and especially Tiffany and Lydia, that is in communication as well. They immediately know when they see something that's AI or that's not
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And we've been embarrassed a few times when we'll repost something, and our
Yeah.
kids go, "Hey, Dad, that's not real."
Hmm.
We go, dang it, I got to quit reposting stuff.
Dang. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the guardrails too, is something feels icky when you find out something's AI, but also at the same time, everyone's using it. So my recommendation is, if it's AI that's shaping a huge thing, like if it's writing a sermon, which we're probably not doing, but if it's leading a conversation, I want it to say like, this is AI generated. I mean, it's not like anyone's going to have a problem with that. It's just good to have that
I
clarity
don't
up
know how
front.
your generations will do. Joseph, you can address this too. But my first thought is, okay, you deceived me, so I got nothing to do with you. You didn't tell me up front
Totally.
it was a bot. And so I'm like,
Totally.
I don't trust you. Are you guys in that camp?
Yeah, I think there's a little, I mean, Joseph, you can speak to it too. I think there's a little discernment automatically. Like anything I open up now, I'm like, is this real?
Yeah.
And whereas trust is probably more inherent
All right, and
for
answer this
earlier
question too,
generations.
Joseph. Are you guys are you distrusting automatically now? Because I am. In the 60s, and I understand my
Hmm.
generation has gotten to the point where we don't trust anything or anyone. And I have
Yeah.
to be honest and tell you that is true of me about pretty much anybody in authority. And I hate to say that. I hate that I'm at
Hmm.
that place, even in the church.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
now, what do y'all think? Where are y'all?
Yeah, I think I go into it with just a little bit of skepticism for sure. Like I'm kind of looking for, all right, are there errors in here? How is this worded? How is this formatted? I don't know if you do that,
Hmm.
Shelby, but that's where
Hmm.
my mind and eyes go to.
Yeah, and it is funny because in some ways I expect AI to be used, but when
Mhm.
it's the primary source of whatever message, or and we can sniff it out pretty well, automatically just write it off, which is funny because I'm an AI enthusiast. I mean, I love the tool,
And I
but
want to
when
say
I know,
I use it with all my podcasts.
yeah,
And it's very
yeah,
helpful. Uh,
yeah, for sure.
before we get on this trail too far, let's take a moment. Talk to me about, and share everybody about the 10 guardrails and that article, how it came about, and then what those are.
Yeah, well, it started with me. I mean, I was on the communications and marketing team of a mega church out in Las Vegas, back when social media was entering the
Hmm.
mainstream. And this just made me think of it. I was kind of reminiscing on that and how ministries were really excited to take it and run with it. But then, especially sitting in a comm seat, you're like, whoa, there's a lot of squirrels to chase down when you're trying to collect it into one brand and one messaging and all that. And AI feels a little bit like that. Everyone's really enthusiastic about it. It's incredibly helpful, but there are guardrails to put in place.
Hmm.
I don't think rules are a good idea because it's such a fun tool and everyone has different use cases for it. We don't want rules, but we do want guardrails to make sure everyone's doing it safely, especially if people are using it to represent your church. You want to make sure that you're not going to have any trust issues develop. So that's where the birth of this really came from.
Okay.
The first one, okay, so there's 10 points here. So
Mhm.
you can usher me along if I'm going too slow. But the first one, and I think we'll all agree, is that AIs assist and humans discern. Um, when it comes to counseling, writing a sermon, like we all know that should not be primarily AI, right? It can maybe assist with a clearer way to communicate a heavy point or something, but it should never, lead the charge on that. So humans discern. I like to say, I don't like when people say, "Oh, I worked with Claude and I came up with this thing," or like, and I'm like, no, no, no. Let's see, like mathematicians don't say I worked with my calculator to get these numbers, you know,
That's
but
good.
we're gonna trust that mathematician to know they checked the math, and that, that they're presenting what they believe in. And I think the same thing is with AI. And so that's twofold. You should just take credit for it in the sense that like that was your thought process, and also take responsibility for what it's generating and what you're using it for.
Okay.
The second one has actually been updated since I posted that back in, a couple months ago, Dale. So I put
So long
never put
ago.
so long ago. I mean, that's ages in AI terms. Never put input confidential information into a public AI tool. Now, what I meant by that back then was if you just, say you're trying to analyze your giving data, you export it from whatever, and you import it into chat and say, who's the biggest givers, right? That's a no-no. Or it was. Now, here's the differentiation. If you're using a free AI tool, or maybe for your audience, if there's no paid format for your team to use, they're likely using the free tool. That's not actually free. The reason that's free is because they're trading on the data, and LLMs have to have data to train on, and so that's just the trade-off you have there. So the rule of thumb, if you're using anything free, like free chat, free Gemini, free Claude, if you would put it on a Reddit thread, on a bulletin board, if you feel comfortable putting it there, you can use it in your AI. If you're not wanting that, if you want more privacy layers, there's two ways to do it. If it's just general stuff, like you're just chatting with Claude or an LLM about, more private stuff, at least make sure you're using the paid version and have your privacy settings turned on. That means that legally they're contracted to not save the data after 30 days and not train on it. So that's a good safety guardrail. Then really where this whole guardrail conversation was inspired by was this point, because if you're really trying to do sensitive data translation, which AI is great at and really helpful in, you want to consider tools that are more specified for that. So Bellwether is a perfect example. We have PII masking, so private information masking, where you can kind of turn on the amount of privacy you want, even from it to pull and present in your chat window. And it also has data security built in, with authentication and not trading on your data, obviously, and the deletion records and timelines like that. So so those would be the two big options to say if you're using anything sensitive data would be those two.
See, I think a lot of us have forgotten that everything we put out in digital format is there forever. It's
Yeah,
you post a picture of your kids and put it online, you're not pulling it back.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
same
and
thing is true with some of this information that when you open it up to the internet, it could go anywhere. And that's kind of what you're talking about protecting, I think.
yeah, yes, and contractually, if you have a paid like an enterprise level of an LLM or some of the tools, they're going to delete that data. So that's actually really important to know. But yeah, when it comes to general stuff or things you're putting into a free chat, that's going to live there forever. Yeah.
Yeah, Shelby, I'm so glad you differentiated that because that
Yeah.
was a question I was going to ask you about when you said,
Yep.
hey, you were like, I said never, but let me clarify because that was
Never for
something.
this week.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I mean, it's true. One of the things you said is, hey, it's ever changing. It's like
Hmm.
that this article is great today, but
Hmm.
very soon you might have to go back and make more updates, right? So tell
Oh,
us a
for
little
sure.
little bit about that's kind of coming as well, right?
About changes in AI in
Yeah,
general.
yeah, just how it's changing so rapidly.
Absolutely. I mean, it is the most helpful tool we've had since electricity, and it will change the landscape of our daily jobs in that same way, I believe. And so every organization, every pastor is thinking, how can I use this to help my team and help
Mm,
myself? And because of that, growth is naturally going to happen. But
yeah.
now, unlike ever before, the rate of growth is insane. I mean,
Mm,
these platforms are coming out with new versions weekly, truly.
yeah.
So yeah,
Like
I mean, to keep up on that is a little exhausting.
the basis of your article was comparing it to what you dealt with in communications when social media started.
Yeah,
And so back then, the church was very slow to
yeah,
adapt to online anything, to use social media, especially the churches that we work with in the small and mid-sized space. Just, either just didn't value it or were skeptical or
yep,
whatever. And so there was a long, long road to getting engaged.
yep.
My opinion, and it's just from what I've observed, is it's like we are engaging with AI much quicker than we
You
did. And
think
it may
so?
be just because we learned the lessons that you can use this stuff for good. What I'm concerned about is that we're going to let it just start doing our job for us, and which is, I think you kind of cover that later on. But what was
Yep.
so we've covered the first two. What was the third thing you dealt with in that
Well,
article?
it actually perfectly speaks to that, which is, I mean, the biggest one. AI cannot speak for God, is the way I bluntly put it, right?
Amen.
It's good.
I mean,
Thank God.
AI, if you think about it, is literally an algorithmic mathematical equation that simply has studied absolutely everything humans have written and said and uses that to predict what you might want to hear. So, in a way, it's like
Wait.
the
Slow that down.
opposite.
Slow that down and say that again, because I don't
Mhm.
think most of us know this.
Okay, so in the most simple terms, AI is actually a huge math problem. I truly can't understand it much further than that because I am not the mathematician.
Hmm.
But what it is it's predicting what is next based on all of the data of human history that's on the internet.
Okay.
So really, what it really is really good at predicting what you want and what you want to hear.
It wants to tell you what you want to hear. My understanding for my
Yes.
kids is one of the big issues that it's kind of dealing with now is it doesn't want to tell you something negative. It,
Yeah.
it it
Yeah.
wants to flatter you, if you will, to keep you happy, to keep you engaged, and it will tell you dumb things sometimes. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And an easy fix for that is just saying, don't gaslight me or don't blow smoke. Tell me how it is. And you can tell it that. And then I'm like, oh, okay, sure. But to that point, it wants to say what you probably want to hear.
That
Now
is so bad.
Mhm.
That is
you tell
not good for
me
churches.
that's
Yeah.
what I'm going to say. Like, are there some pieces of the Bible that maybe people don't want to hear? Are there some truths that maybe are hard? And that's why I think like AI cannot speak for God. In actuality, AI is just a huge human and the most human thinking you could possibly have. So that's the very opposite of God. So it can help, right? It can help you do administrative tasks so
Hmm.
for you to be human and you to do your theological studies and do your work. So that is the big one for number three.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number four, treat every AI output like a first draft. This one is really tempting and really hard because AI is so good and it's
It
so
is.
smart.
Hmm.
But if you start looking at it, I mean, Ernst and Young just had to redact a huge study because it had falsified, like hallucinated, is what we call it in the AI world, all this data. And when you're looking at it in a spreadsheet, like this looks great.
So
Um,
they published it without verifying
mhm.
it. Ooh.
Oh man.
Yep, yep. There were some footnotes that were wrong, and then if you look at it really closely and ran the math yourself, the data was wrong. So, I mean, and that's like a big four, corporation, right? So
Hmm.
you got to treat everything like a first draft. Go through it with that skepticism of like, okay, where is this wrong? If you try to find the goose egg in that, then sometimes that's the good way to look at it.
Yeah.
What I like to say too is have a prompt that you can add to anything you put in AI that says, cite cite this and tell me what's inferred versus what's what's actual data. And that helps to, and it'll flag it like this is, cite its sources and say, I kind of guessed on that. Especially if our ministry leaders are using Claude or just general AI LLM programs, there's not the ministry knowledge. And so when we built Bellwether, there's a huge, we call it a harness of ministry knowledge. So if someone puts in, who are my volunteers? Our LLM knows how to translate that, and maybe it'll even clarify, like, do you mean kids volunteers, or did you mean greeters, or but a general LLM will just kind of say, well, here you go, this has the word volunteer in it. So that's all to say they can make mistakes, and you always want to approve and review what it's creating.
Yeah, Shelby, I love that you said that because, like, even today, I use it again. It is a tool to assist in my sermon prep. It is not my
Mm-hmm.
sermon prep. So
Mm-hmm.
I
I
noticed they
have,
said your preaching was getting a lot better. So
yeah, it probably is. And Dale, that's just because you and I are friends. Yeah. So you help me a lot. But no, that's great. But the thing about it is I had my main text and I said, hey, are there some other supporting passages that may be helpful?
Oh,
And
good.
it pulled this scripture in and then gave me a line with it. And I literally had to say, this doesn't even make sense. And this line is not even biblical. Like I was like, and I literally said back, don't ever say this again.
No, yeah.
So,
I mean, it'll fabricate a C.S. Lewis quote just as easily as it will scripture. It's
mhm,
oh
really hard
Lord,
to
that scares me.
differentiate that.
yeah.
This feels like I'm in a sci-fi podcast.
Right. Yeah. And that discernment is so key. I mean, I've heard of great examples of AI usage in sermons of like, hey, read this from a perspective of an atheist, and what
Yeah.
arguments would you have, and help me. Like that's really cool. But I think the safest use for a lot of churches is just like the administrative stuff. So
Yeah.
you can spend the time digging through what supportive scriptures might what other scriptures might support the case. But that's such an interesting
All right. I
example.
want to be
Yeah.
clear about something, then we're going to take a break
Yeah.
and keep going with this. I think we've only answered four. So, like, you have the Bellwether
So
app. So, like,
Yeah.
I use Notion with mine.
Love Notion.
So,
Yeah.
so your thing is just like it's another version like of Notion or chat or whatever. It's just, but yours is more oriented for ministry. Is that what I heard?
So it is a chat bot that will connect directly to your planning center. And right now, Planning Center and Rock RMS are our main connections. There's more adding every day. Again,
Mm-hmm,
always
mm-hmm,
changing. And its primary goal is to translate the data. So you can hook that up, and it will mirror the permissions that you have in Planning Center.
mm-hmm.
And if you have the right permissions and you say, hey, really complicated things, who maybe has given and stopped giving, but also volunteered, and maybe are still volunteering, but they're not giving anymore. Those kind of things we're spending days in spreadsheets or asking our IT team to pull things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is what Bellwether is serving. That is an example of AI being a tool for ministry leaders so they can get out from behind the screen and start doing ministry.
Wow. Well, let's take a short break. Take a short break. We're right back with Shelby, and then we have to answer number 5, I think. Is that right? All right.
Yes.
Short break. Back here with Shelby, just getting our minds blown. And I knew this podcast was going to be this way. This is like a podcast on, like on 100 times, steroids. So we're walking through the 10 guardrails article that you did, and a lot of other things in the midst of that too. So what is number 5 of guardrails?
Number 5. Yep. This one's pretty simple. It's know what you're agreeing to before you sign up. As we kind of talked about, like trust is inherent with people. And you don't know right now if a model is training on your data. What happens to that data in 30 days? Just those data privacy things, I think for ministry leaders is the most important. And it's something that we are been entrusted with to steward correctly. So an easy takeaway for this is find whatever platform you're using, their data privacy policy, throw that into chat and say, hey, what should I be concerned about when it comes to my data on this? And if it says, oh no, it looks pretty good. It can help you translate those things that can feel a little bit overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But just always know what you're signing up for.
Cool.
The next one,
Number
this
6.
one number 6 is be transparent with your congregation, right? Dale, this is what you and I were just talking about. Why does it feel so icky to find out something was AI, but we're all using it? So, I mean, I don't think you need to preface it with absolutely everything. But if something was largely built by AI, if a curriculum was AI led or AI built, like you should note to that. Even on our app Bellwether, at the very bottom, it always says, "This is artificial intelligence." Like always check your work, always check our work.
From a practical perspective of a small church
Yeah,
that's just using this, how do we do that? How do we let people know? Do we that is AI? I mean, how big of a sign do we need to flash about that?
yeah. I mean, every person's gonna be different. If it makes you feel icky to not say something about it, then just say something about it. But it's not uncommon to say, "Oh yeah, like our new graphics, like that was AI generated," if you feel like you need to say it, or maybe even put it in the bottom of a video if you feel like that's necessary. And if it was all built by AI, I think maybe a good rule of thumb is like internally decide what percentage of the outcome is AI driven, and maybe that's your litmus test of like how you should communicate. And that could just be a little asterisk at the bottom, or maybe if you're, preaching and you're like, well, I had this thought and Claude brought up this thing, and it just to naturally bring it up because AI feels like cheating. I don't know if you guys feel like that. Like, does it
So
sometimes
the
feel like that?
the, the
So
fellow I
true.
mentioned earlier with the Wall Street Journal, Daryl, I had Daryl on 6, 7 months ago to talk about using AI in sermon prep, especially how helpful it would be for small church pastors. And as we're walking through it, I was looking at the visuals, and he showed me a picture of an event that was in his sermon. And then
Yeah.
I did not realize for 20 minutes till he told me later, oh, that's not real. AI made that up. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh Lord, this just seems so unethical.
Yeah.
But I don't, I
Yeah.
mean, so,
Yeah. Yeah. And that is it. I mean, if it's misrepresenting, like if it's
well,
not
it didn't
real, yeah.
misrepresent it, but
Yeah.
it painted a perfect picture of something that didn't exist. Is that misrepresenting? Joseph, help me here.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't. We might have to ask AI if that.
Oh
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, in it's funny because it does feel like AI is cheating, right? Like you're like peeking on someone's math test because it's like, oh my gosh, things that took us so long is now just like readily available. So yeah, I just think it's worth saying and saying out loud. If you're not comfortable claiming that it was AI, you're probably not in a good place to use AI that much.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's a good reminder like AI is not cheating. Everyone's using it. And let's learn how to steward it ethically and be comfortable with our usage so we can say proudly, like, yep, we used AI in order to help our team, but nothing was lost in the translation of that.
Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
Shelby, tell me if you kind of agree with this too, because I think one of the things we try to tell like our team at my church, like we'll say, hey, you're welcome to use this, but part of our policy is always when you're asked about it, you have to be transparent about
Hmm.
how you utilized it. And
Hmm.
and
100%.
it's almost like you talked about AI. I love how you said it's a math equation, or it's basically being calculated in a math formula. So
Yeah.
you remember old school, you do math with a sheet of paper. It's a word
Yep.
problem. You have to.
I'm surprised
I
either one of you know what paper is.
Well, yes, but I
I've heard
remember,
of
and,
it.
and this was a long time ago. You used this
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
called a pencil and a piece
Yeah.
of paper. But
Yep.
my math teacher used to always say, "Show your work." So
Yes.
so
Show
I
your work.
think I think that if we are asked about it, we need to be
Yeah.
transparent. This is how I
100%.
utilized it. This is how it was
Hmm.
implemented. This is how it was generated.
Yes. 100%. A quick, can we do a little side trail here?
Yes.
Because
What point?
Absolutely.
Which point do we answer? We got to 7 yet?
we
We're
got,
going to 7 next.
Okay, so we just
yeah.
want to make sure we allow enough time to get to 10. So, but yes,
Okay,
side point's
perfect.
fine. Mhm.
I think like when it comes to Dale, you said it's just so unethical. And AI can feel like, I think a lot of people are sitting it out because they feel like it's not ethical.
Can I explain to you where that came from?
Yes.
I've never heard of this till the last 15 or 20 years, but I have
Hmm.
worked with multiple churches who fired their pastors because their pastors plagiarized. So what that
Okay.
meant was their pastors were like, Andy Stanley would do a series, and their pastor would preach that
Snag
series,
it.
which,
Yep.
but he didn't give credit to Andy. And so a
Hmm.
board member found out through somebody that he's literally just using Andy's stuff, and they fired him. And that
Hmm.
surprised me. And here's why. It's
Hmm.
because I remember as a teenager, you could buy Charles Stanley's years worth of sermons and preach them. And you didn't get up every
Yeah.
week and go, this is Charles Stanley's message. And so I didn't understand and still don't quite understand the complete thing there. But
Yeah.
I do understand it's a challenge of their integrity. And so that's
Yeah.
where that question came from, is just
It's
knowing
really
that
good.
we're in this era right now where, I mean, I've known pastors who, whatever the new series that Furtick's preaching, that's what they're doing. And they don't give
Totally.
any credit to it. They don't. Now, one of the things that does get you in trouble is when you actually use the same stories as though your own.
Yes.
Some guys have enough
They're saying
sense
my
to,
wife did this. They're like, that guy's not even
Yeah.
married.
yeah.
And they,
Wait a
they don't
minute.
even they don't even change the
Yeah.
name of your wife,
Yeah,
whoever it
yeah,
is.
my
Yeah.
my kids, and wait a minute, you don't have any kids.
Yeah.
And so that's where that comes
Oh, it's
from.
funny.
And that's my inner turmoil with all of this.
Totally. Absolutely. And I want to speak to that huge subset of people, especially I feel like in the church world, that are sitting it out because it just feels not right yet.
Mhm.
Again, this is a mathematical equation training on what data we input. So, if you are an ethical person with high standards, it is almost imperative that you use AI because with every interaction you have, it's training on that to go, oh, Dale wants to say, hey, this is Stephen Furtick's message. This is inspired by it. Let's go. Or hey, this is a site like, even prompting it, cite your sources, or make sure that this is mindful of all people from all walks of life, or these things that we inherently have as ethical standards.
Mhm.
um, Maybe our computers don't know that yet, and so it actually is really really important that we inject these preferences into it, from especially, I mean, our biblical standpoint,
Mhm.
so that maybe it can start spitting that out to other people that use it. So it's I mean, it is really really important that
I was
we teach
definitely
it
a
ethics.
slow to use it. But my
Yeah.
kids were telling me like, Dad, just with your podcast notes, just try
Yeah.
it. And now I
Totally.
can we release the podcast, and I also release the same day a podcast summary, just a written summary.
Amazing.
AI helps me do
Amazing.
that, and it does it in two
Yep.
minutes.
Yep.
It
Yeah, I
summarizes
mean,
our
it's
entire
so perfect.
podcast. And
It's a
and
dream.
yeah, it is. And I'm like, this is
Right.
all great information. Maybe someone doesn't have time to listen to the whole podcast, but they can read the overview in 5 minutes. And so
Hmm.
it's been
Hmm.
very helpful, but I was very slow
Yeah.
because of the integrity issue.
Yeah. Well, and LLMs can crawl your site into those notes and use that to train its data, which is a service to ministry leaders
I know
everywhere.
she just said something, Joseph, but I have no idea what it means. But anyway,
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
did we finish your rabbit trail? Are we ready to get back to seven yet?
Yep, yep, yep. We're
All
good.
right.
We're good. All right. This one's going to be easy. Automate carefully. I think especially the younger generations that are really into AI will get really excited about like these super automated, like I call them agents that can just run on their own. Uh, I preach human in the loop, so that means bringing a human to always like every step of the way, say yes or no, make the post, make the decision. You don't want to let automations get away from you.
Mhm.
Um, so that one's pretty easy. Number 8 is AI cannot replace pastoral presence, right? We all know this. But I wanted to call it out separately because pastors are faced with grief and crisis and marital breakdown. And in no way do I believe, in my humble little corner over here, that that should be replaced by AI in any way. Now, can it take up the time that it's going to take you to run a report later that day so you can focus on pastoring? Yes. And so that was just a point I wanted to make sure was called out loud and clear.
I want to agree with that too for small church pastors specifically. If you will,
Totally.
if you will engage and use this effectively, you can gain time from it once you learn how to operate.
Hmm.
And that was part of what Daryl's article was about when we did the podcast before about helping pastors write their messages. Because,
Totally.
especially small church pastors are so overwhelmed with the busyness and things that's going on in their lives. It can actually be a really helpful tool.
Absolutely. When it does come to that, I think that's somewhere where the buck stops with Bellwether. We'll never pull pastoral notes. That just gets really too cloudy. And so I will point out to pastors, don't you put your pastoral notes, any kind of counseling notes in an LLM, or an AI bot. That should be discerned within the privacy of your CHMS or whatever you might use to store that data.
Your
Your
LLM and
church
your
management.
CHMS. Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
your church management software. That should, yeah. So I would just say, like, I would draw a pretty hard line at sharing pastoral notes, any kind of counseling notes with an AI platform at all.
I just got to say, that seems like a no-brainer to me.
It seems like a
But
no-brainer, and that's hopefully
is it not?
Yeah.
Joseph, is it
it
not
might
a
not be.
no-brainer?
Well, and that's what I could say, like what we've had to talk about with our teams, and even like as I've talked to other pastors, um, I think it is common sense when you're learning and you're in the world of it, kind of like we're training pastors and leaders and different things like that. But what I think is that it's so easy to fall into, oh, well, this made this easy. I wonder if it can make this
Hmm.
easy. And it
Hmm.
just you can go deeper and deeper. So
Hmm.
very quickly you could end up going, oh, well, you just I'm gonna put everything into it.
And I want to add to that, I
Totally.
actually served with a pastor one time that, okay, so Shelby, if you and your husband went to this pastor for counseling,
Okay.
you guys were the illustration he used that Sunday in the sermon. Now he didn't call your
Mm-mm.
name. He
Hmm.
didn't identify you. But
Okay.
being on staff, we knew who it was, and it was just like, that's not right, dog. But
Mhm.
it was what was fresh for
Yeah.
him, and it's just all. I mean, it was mind-boggling how often it would come into his messages. And so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hear some of that in
Yep.
this particular thing here. Don't do that.
Yep. Yep. Do you want to know the technical term for changing names and dates? It's called PII masking.
Oh, I thought that's what it was,
And
but I wasn't sure. I didn't know if
yeah.
Joseph knew.
So if
I
you yeah. So a lot of times, like Bellwether, for example, you can turn on PII masking. Believe me, I didn't know what that concept was before too. And it just says it'll just change the anonymize it a little bit, or say like 12 people instead of all the names. So
yeah.
there's a nerd way to say that too, Bill. Yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah,
I'm
I
obviously not the
was
nerd in this podcast.
I was waiting on her not to answer to tell you, Dale. I'm totally
Thank
kidding.
you, Joe.
That's
You were
great.
just chomping. Sorry, I
Yes,
spoke
yeah.
over you
No,
there.
no, it's great. It's great. All right, so number 9,
Number
Shelby.
9. Okay, so this one, especially Joseph, for a church like yours that's using AI, and you're like, yep, go for it, team. Know who owns the tools and what happens when people leave. If someone sets up a workflow, especially when it's talking about automating something,
Mm.
and that person transitions off of staff, their workflow's still going. So it's something worth noting that that automation lives on. So my like tip for this is to have a designated owner for every tool, or maybe you have like an AI owner, right? But then create a spreadsheet that kind of acts like a library of maybe all prompts, all automations, who owns those automations. And again, I think that starts with like making AI normal on your staff. Like, remind people, like, it's not bad to use AI. Just like make sure you're letting me know what's going on out there when it comes, especially to automating things. But also from like prompts, if they're like, hey, this thing I said to chat really helped me build out this spreadsheet, then share that with the class. Like,
Is
so
this
that would be
like
my.
intellectual property? Is this
I
in that
mean,
vein? Because, like,
in
if
a
you
way, yeah.
write, one of the things you have to, that you really struggle with in ministry, like, so if you serve, I'll just use me as an example for 95 Network. I write, wrote books, I've done that. And so, like, when we do our conferences and stuff, I
Yeah.
give that to 95 Network to use, but it's still my intellectual property. So
Yeah.
it can't just be stolen, because,
Mm-hmm.
and my friend Tony Morgan, who passed away a year and a half ago, was
Hmm.
really strong about making sure, that, you stand up for your intellectual property because God
Hmm.
gave you that and you want to make sure it stays pure. So, is there an intellectual property issue that takes place when someone leaves the church if they establish how things work? How does all that work?
That's a really good question. And I think no and yes. So um some of these processes, when you kind of like package them all up is called a skill. And those skills can be shared. They can be shared. And right now, as the current climate is, it's very easy to go onto somewhere and just download a skill that someone else has made, and it's awesome. But then there's also people that monetize that skill and make it a package you can buy. So I think it just depends. But when it comes to
Joseph,
this context,
I was going to say, Joseph, have y'all talked about this? With this, is this an issue with what you're doing yet, or is it still too fresh? Because you have a
Mm,
larger church.
yeah,
It's
it's still a little fresh.
okay.
When you mentioned about the prompts, I mean,
yeah,
it depends on if that's for a specific content. Like
yeah,
we use it for people that are going to do announcements in a service to maybe um, for their announcement script. You know,
perfect. Yeah,
they're
like
writing,
stage script.
yeah, stage notes, different things
Hmm.
like that. So basically, it's like, okay, what did we feed in it to kind of
Hmm.
create our voice, if that makes
Yep.
sense?
Yep. And that's important for like continuity of brand going into my nerdy
Right.
marketing world. You want to make sure that you're at least having the same thing. AI will always generate like a little bit different of a result, which is what's frustrating about it. But if you can get the same prompt every time, hopefully it'll have a more uniformed outcome.
We answered a lot there. I don't know if it was overwhelming or not. We kind of got in the weeds a little bit with that one.
No, that's so good.
All
All
right,
right,
and then we
Yeah.
got number 10 coming up, Joe.
number
Yeah. So
10.
number 10, I think can feel really intimidating for pastors,
Oh,
especially if
none of this
they
has felt intimidating at all today. So this is I'm so glad we're bringing up something that's intimidating.
We might have to listen to this one in point 0.5 speed just to
I think
capture it all. But
so.
That's so good.
number 10 would be train your congregation and not your staff. And obviously, I don't mean actually train your congregation, but your people are already using AI. They're using it for marriage questions. They're using it. How do I say this to my husband without ripping his head off? They're using it for spiritual guidance. So my encouragement here is just don't shy away from it. Feel free to preach about it, talk about how it's shaping our culture. Just don't let it fester in the darkness, and just let it be something that is now a part of our everyday, because people are using it, and recognize that your congregation is using this. They're coming to Claude before they come to you for pastoral care.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Say that again.
they're
And I
going
know
to
it's true.
Claude, yeah, before they're coming to you.
But before AI came along, we've done articles about this. I've been at 95 Network for 8 years, and when Austin was with us, he actually did some articles about the fact that when we did a communications talk, that people would often go to Google and ask them, if they were
Oh,
if
for
they were
sure.
depressed, should I take my life? They would
Hmm.
search Google about, is life worth living? And
Hmm.
this, and so AI's got to be even worse, better. I'm not sure. What's the
Yeah,
word?
and again, they're trying to train it day to day about how to get better at that. So I have seen prompts where eventually it says, this is a conversation for a therapist. Like I'm just a bot, and it's getting better at that. But it's still helping people every day in good ways too. I mean, in encouraging ways. But yeah,
All right, the bell just went off in my head. So this
okay.
is this is why you're on the podcast. So
Yeah,
why would a person reach out to AI before they would talk to their pastor?
it's easy. It's judgment free. It probably already knows all the context of that person. There's no introducing yourself to it, and it's a quick answer. you know um I think small churches and medium churches probably don't have this problem as much. But whether I always grew up in a mega church,
Hmm.
so my finding who to talk to pastorally to get care in that way is at least a Google search of who do I even talk to. Why would I go through all of that friction if I can just talk to Claude? And I
Mm,
think that
Boy,
that's where
there's
people's
a whole
brains go.
sermon right there with what she
yeah,
just said.
yeah.
That's a whole message of where the church is before even AI got
Hmm.
here.
Mm.
Because
Hmm.
there's a lot of people that they're not going to go talk to the church because they're going to be judged.
Hmm.
They're going to start, the ground's not going to be level. They're already going to have so much piled against them. And they've
Hmm.
given up hope before they started.
For sure. For sure. I remember I was on the team at Central in Vegas. So Vegas, a big secret church. And when you're the welcome team there, you see all walks of life. And I truly remember a woman saying, I think I'm going to get struck by lightning. I truly think I will be, because I should be in a ditch doing drugs somewhere, and I'm in church instead. And I mean, just her fear and her trepidation to even step into the building. And of course, that's not what any of us want. And so, how can we bridge that gap a little bit more is always our goal, right?
Wow. This, I didn't expect us to get there, but I'm glad we did
So good.
because we want churches to be authentic. We want
Yeah,
churches to be real. We want, and
yeah.
and that's why I was so glad to meet you because you are authentic and real and you know this stuff
Um,
and you understand it from a ministry perspective. So before we run out of time, you had several things that we talked about offline about discussing today. Is there anything that's like burning in your heart that we need to make sure we discuss today that we haven't already gotten to?
No, you let me go on the ethical use rabbit trail. So I've said my piece there. So I'm just so grateful for your time.
Joseph, you got anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to cover from your perspective?
No, I just think, I thought about what you said and training your congregation. I think for us, there's probably an encouragement, Shelby, that you might be able to offer to pastors
Yeah.
with the rise of AI, who and the ones that might be latecomers, to
Hmm.
say, you know what, they might just be sitting there going, I just hope this goes away. But like you said, their congregation, the people in their church, they're already using it. So
Hmm.
it's something, maybe you can just encourage them, hey, you don't have to be
Yeah.
afraid of it, but there's people
Yeah.
that want to help. And
Yeah.
could you talk to them for just a second to close
I
us
would be
out?
so glad to. I think AI is here. It is not going anywhere, to your point. And also, you're not as far behind as you think. I may have used too many acronyms for understanding
Oh, we
today.
understood all of those.
But in reality, it is just a question and response type of platform. You're not far behind for not knowing everything yet, because everything just changed last week. It could have changed yesterday. So I would encourage pastors, ministry leaders to just, yeah, you're not behind, and you're not ill equipped to talk about this. Don't feel intimidated like you have to know everything, because you don't. There's nothing really to know besides that your congregation is using this and they could use your leadership.
All right, let's do something real practical for the pastor who's not used AI at all,
Yep.
and they're listening to and going, okay, all right, maybe it's not the Antichrist. Maybe I can use this. Where
Yeah.
should they start?
That's a great question. Um, just open up Claude, and honestly, to make the stakes really low. So Claude.ai or
That's
Chat
what I was going to say.
GPT.
Well, they don't. They think Claude's the guy that John Maxwell used to talk about. So Claude is a version of AI. Okay, all right.
Yes. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Open it up and to make the stakes really low. Say, I'm feeling like I want to go to Outback Steakhouse tonight, but I want to cook at home. What should I cook? Asking something that's low stakes, not that the future of our spirits don't rely on, right? And just have it plan your dinner tonight and just see what that feels like. And just kind of play with it. I mean, it really is just a call and response type of thing that you get more comfortable with as time goes on.
Joseph, have you ever done anything that you thought I'll never do that, and you did it, and you're like, oh wow, why did I do that earlier?
Yeah. 100%. Yes.
Yeah, well, I kind of did that with when it came to finally because my girls just kept encouraging me, Dad, just try Notion, just try it, and I actually bought
Hmm.
I bought a paid version because I didn't want to use the free version because it only
Yeah.
takes you so far, and I don't have the
Yeah.
most expensive one, but hey, if I can
I
do
think
this,
Notion's amazing.
if I can figure this stuff out, then anybody listening to this podcast can figure this
Hmm.
stuff out. It's been so
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. And when it comes to bringing this into a ministry space, just start with the administrative tasks, the things you hate doing,
Yeah, that's what I
and
do.
automate those. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It sounds like that. It's like show notes is probably so tedious. So just get that off your plate with AI, and then you'll be in love.
Well, so we do the podcast, we throw it on YouTube, and the cool thing about YouTube is YouTube will give you a transcript, a written transcript. So I just
Yes.
copy the
Yeah.
transcript, I load
That's
it into
right.
my AI, and it cleans it all up. So
Hmm.
it's not creating anything new. It's
Yeah.
just and it does it in 3 or 4 minutes.
3 or 4 minutes.
And if
Yeah.
I'm a normal pastor, then I know that I can go fill my life up with something else because I just
Yeah.
saved all that time.
Yeah.
That's right. And you can do that with your
Okay,
sermons
so
on Sundays.
we
Mhm.
want to go ahead and give you an invitation to be part of our team. So we're going to check in with you at least once a quarter, so you can keep us
Perfect.
up to snuff on what's going on. So here's what I'd love
Oh,
for you
I
to
love
do.
that. Hmm.
If something's coming down the pike, and you're like, man, we need to discuss that, would you please
Yeah,
let us know? You have an open invitation to be
absolutely.
on the podcast.
Well, that is very flattering. I'm very grateful for that. Absolutely. I would love to. I've loved sharing with y'all today. And also I think LinkedIn maybe is the best place to find me.
Hmm.
So if anyone has questions or, anything, I'm here to serve the church. So
I'll have your the app connection point on the show notes. I'll have your email, LinkedIn.
yeah.
If
Okay.
anybody wants to get a hold of you, just to reach out to us, we would love to.
Yeah.
Because here's why you're special to me and Joseph. You
Mm.
obviously are very knowledgeable about all this stuff, but you love Jesus.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's hard
Mhm.
today to find people who are
Mhm.
smart and all this
Mhm.
stuff that love Jesus
Mm.
too.
Oh, thank you.
And that came
I
through
mean,
in the podcast. I mean, I love that about you.
Yeah.
well, thank you so much, Dale. And I mean, that's why we built Bellwether. Is just we had this like industrial knowledge, but a heart for Jesus, and we're like, man, we have to democratize this kind of access to
Mm.
ministry leaders. So, really grateful for that.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to you next time you're on.
Okay, I can't wait. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for listening to the 95 Podcast. We look forward to sharing another episode with you next week. In the meantime, visit our website at 95network.org. The website is loaded with great resources created for small and mid-sized church leaders. Until next time, have a great week.